Rain hammered Charleston the night Avery Valine learned her father sold her like livestock to a Chicago Mafia heir she'd never met. One choice remained: run or marry a monster. She chose the highway. 300 miles later, hiding in her best friend's apartment, Avery believed distance could sever the chains wrapped around her bloodline. She was wrong. Roman Vesper had already seen her photograph, already made his decision, already sent men south with one quiet order that would ignite a war neither of them could survive. Bring her to me. If you're watching from your city right now, hit that like button and drop your location in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's begin.
What they ask?
The suitcase split open across Lena Hartwell's kitchen floor at 2 in the morning, spilling clothes and panic across cracked linoleum. Avery Valine stood in the doorway, dripping rainwater and adrenaline, her hands shaking so violently she couldn't grip the zipper to close the damn thing again. Jesus Christ, Lena whispered, staring at her best friend like she'd crawled out of a grave. What happened? My father. Avery's voice came out raw, stripped. He arranged a marriage to someone in Chicago. I don't even know his name. Lena crossed the small apartment in 3 steps and pulled Avery into her arms, holding tight, while the girl who never cried finally broke open like something fragile hitting concrete. The sob that tore out of Avery's throat sounded animal, desperate, like every year spent suffocating inside her family's empire had finally found a way to escape through her ribs. You're safe here, Lena said firmly, even though they both knew that was a lie. We'll figure this out. Avery pulled back, wiping her face with shaking hands. Her dark hair hung in wet tangles around her shoulders. Her eyes, sharp, guarded, always calculating exits, looked haunted in a way Lena had never seen before. He told me over dinner, Avery said quietly, like he was discussing a business acquisition. Said the wedding's in 6 months, said it's strategically necessary. That's the exact phrase he used. Strategically necessary. Your father's a bastard. My father's a crime lord. Avery's laugh came out bitter and broken. Everything he touches turns into leverage or threat, including me. She bent down and started shoving clothes back into the suitcase with jerky, frantic movements. A black dress. Jeans. A laptop wrapped in a sweater. One framed photograph she couldn't leave behind. Her and Lena at 18, drunk on cheap wine, laughing like the future was something they owned instead of something waiting to devour them. I have money saved, Avery said. Offshore accounts he doesn't know about. I can disappear for a while. Charleston's big enough. Lena grabbed Avery's wrist, stopping her. You can stay here as long as you need. But Avery, if your father's connected the way you've always said, he'll send people eventually. Avery's voice went flat. I know, but eventually isn't tonight. She zipped the suitcase closed with finality that sounded like a door slamming. I need a burner phone, Avery said. Cash. And I need you to promise me something. Anything. If men come asking about me, anyone who looks too clean, too controlled, you've never heard my name. Lena's face went pale, but she nodded. Outside, Charleston rain hammered the streets like fists against glass. The apartment Avery rented 3 days later sat above a laundromat in a neighborhood where nobody asked questions and landlords accepted cash without contracts. 1 bedroom. Peeling wallpaper, a fire escape that rattled in the wind. She paid for 6 months up front using money transferred through so many shell accounts, even she barely remembered the route. She bought new clothes at thrift stores, cut her hair shorter in Lena's bathroom, started applying for remote cybersecurity contracts under a name she pulled from a random headstone in Magnolia Cemetery, Claire Donovan. The work came easy. Avery had spent her entire childhood learning how to break into systems her father wanted cracked open. Corporate databases, encrypted communications, financial records hidden behind layers of legal fiction. She was good, better than good. The kind of talent that could dismantle a Fortune 500 company's security architecture in under 48 hours without leaving a single footprint behind. Now she used those skills to disappear. Every morning she woke up expecting her father's men at the door. Every night she triple-checked the locks and slept with a knife under her pillow and her phone within reach. Panic lived just beneath her skin now, constant and electric, a current she couldn't shut off. But weeks passed, then a month, then 6. And slowly, carefully, Avery began to believe she might have actually escaped. She met Lena for coffee twice a week, at a place near the waterfront where tourists crowded the tables, and nobody paid attention to two women talking quietly in the corner. They never discussed Avery's father, never mentioned Boston, never said anything that could be overheard and weaponized. Instead, they talked about normal things: books, weather, the terrible dating app matches Lena kept swiping through like Russian roulette with disappointing men. "You should try it," Lena said one afternoon, sliding her phone across the table to show Avery a profile featuring a guy holding a fish. "Get out there. Live a little." Avery looked at the screen like it was a bomb. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop." Avery pushed the phone back. "Because I don't know how to be a person instead of a target." Lena's expression softened. "You've been here 6 months, Avery. Maybe he's not coming. Maybe." Avery didn't believe it. Couldn't afford to. Or maybe he's just being patient. That night, alone in her apartment with rain streaking the windows, Avery did something reckless. She logged into a proxy server, routed her connection through 4 different countries, and searched her father's name online. The results came back clean. Too clean. No arrests, no investigations, no hint that anyone in Boston even remembered a girl named Avery Valine had ever existed. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like a trap. The first time Avery saw Roman Vesper, she didn't know his name. It was a Friday night in late April, humid and electric with the kind of southern heat that made everything feel dangerous. Lena had dragged Avery to a waterfront lounge near the harbor, a place with amber lighting, blues music bleeding from speakers, and enough crowd noise to hide inside. "You need to get out of that apartment," Lena had insisted earlier. "You're starting to look like a ghost." So Avery went, wore a simple black dress, tied her hair back, kept her back to the wall and her eyes on the exits like muscle memory she couldn't reprogram. The bar was crowded, too crowded, bodies pressed together in the low golden light while a saxophone wailed something slow and aching from the corner stage. Avery ordered whiskey neat and tried not to look like she was scanning for threats. That's when the man appeared beside her. Not Roman. Someone else. Tall. Drunk. Smelling like expensive cologne and entitlement. He leaned too close, one hand sliding across the bar near her glass. "You look lonely," he said, grinning with too many teeth. Avery's stomach tightened. "I'm not." "Come on, let me buy you a drink." "I already have one." His grin sharpened into something uglier. "Don't be like that." Avery's hand moved instinctively toward her purse, where she kept a small canister of pepper spray tucked inside the lining. But before she could reach it, another man stepped between them, calm, controlled, wearing a dark suit that looked like it cost more than Avery's rent. "The lady said no," the stranger said quietly. His voice carried weight, authority, the kind of tone that didn't need volume to cut through noise. The drunk man bristled. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone you don't want to test." The stranger didn't raise his voice, didn't move, just stood there radiating the kind of dangerous stillness that made smart people walk away. The drunk man stared for another few seconds, weighing options, calculating odds, then muttered something vicious under his breath and disappeared back into the crowd. Avery exhaled slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Thank you," she said carefully. The stranger turned to face her fully for the first time, and Avery's breath caught. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful. Sharp jawline, dark hair pushed back from his face, eyes that looked black in the low amber light but might have been deep brown in daylight. There was something controlled about him, something that reminded Avery of her father's men, but it sat differently on him. Less calculated, more contained, like he was holding something immense and violent behind his teeth and choosing not to let it out. "You shouldn't be alone in a place like this," he said. Avery bristled. "I can handle myself?" "I'm sure you can." A faint smile touched his mouth. "But that doesn't mean you should have to." He extended his hand. Cole. Avery hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away, to disappear back into the crowd, to never give her name to a stranger who looked like he could ruin her life without breaking a sweat. But something about him felt different, safer. God, she hated how desperate that made her. "Claire," she lied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, warm. He held her gaze a second too long, like he was reading something written behind her eyes. Can I buy you another drink, Claire? I haven't finished this one yet. Then I'll wait. And he did. They talked for an hour, maybe longer. Time folded strangely in the amber light and blues music. Cole asked questions that felt genuine, not invasive, not probing, just curious. What brought her to Charleston? Whether she liked the coast, if she'd tried the shrimp and grits at the place 2 blocks south. Avery lied through most of it. Small lies. Careful ones. The kind designed to sound real enough to satisfy without giving away anything that mattered. But beneath the lies, something terrifying was happening. She was enjoying herself. For the first time in months, maybe years, Avery felt something besides fear and exhaustion. Cole was intelligent. Funny in a dry, understated way. He listened like her words actually mattered instead of just filling space between his own thoughts. And when he smiled, rare, fleeting, barely there, it felt like watching sunlight break through storm clouds. "You're not from Charleston," Avery said eventually. "What gave it away?" "Your accent. It's northern. Chicago, maybe?" Something flickered across his face, too fast to name. "Good ear. What brought you south?" "Business." He took a slow sip of his drink. "What brought you?" "Running away?" Avery said before she could stop herself. Cole's expression shifted, softened. "From what?" "Everything." He didn't push, didn't ask for details, just nodded like he understood exactly what she meant. "Sometimes running's the smartest thing you can do," he said quietly. They talked until last call. Until the bar started emptying and the blues music faded into silence. When they finally stepped outside into the humid Charleston night, Avery realized she didn't want the evening to end. That terrified her more than anything. "Can I see you again?" Cole asked. Every alarm in Avery's brain screamed no, screamed that getting close to anyone was dangerous, that letting someone inside her life was the fastest way to get destroyed. But when she looked at him standing there in the amber glow from the street lamp, patient, controlled, waiting for her answer like it actually mattered, Avery heard herself say yes. They exchanged numbers, made plans to meet for dinner the following week. And when Cole walked away into the Charleston night, Avery stood on the sidewalk watching him disappear, wondering why safety felt so much more frightening than danger ever had. What Avery didn't know, couldn't know, was that the man who called himself Cole had been watching her for 3 days before he ever walked into that bar. Roman Vesper had received her photograph 6 months earlier. His father had sent it. "Anthony Valeen's daughter," the old man had said, sliding the image across a mahogany desk in their Chicago estate. "The marriage alliance is already arranged. You'll meet her at the wedding." Roman had looked at the photograph for a long time. Dark hair, sharp eyes, a face that looked guarded even in a candid shot taken from a distance. "She's beautiful," his father pressed. "And more importantly, she's leverage. Anthony controls half the political infrastructure in Boston. This marriage secures our position for the next decade." Roman said nothing. He'd learned early that silence was the safest response when his father discussed business. 3 months later, Anthony Valeen called the Vesper estate in a rage. "She ran," he snarled over the phone. "The ungrateful little bitch ran." Roman's father had looked at him across the study with cold expectation. "Find her. Bring her back. The wedding happens whether she agrees or not." So Roman went hunting. It took his people 4 weeks to trace Avery's digital footprint to Charleston. Another 2 weeks to confirm she was using the name Claire Donovan. Another week to learn her routines, where she bought coffee, which streets she avoided, when she left her apartment. Roman told himself he was doing reconnaissance, gathering intelligence, making sure she couldn't run again. But the truth was something darker. The truth was that Roman Vesper, heir to one of the most dangerous crime families in the Midwest, a man raised to see people as assets or obstacles, had looked at Avery's photograph and felt something he'd spent his entire life learning to bury. Curiosity. He wanted to know who she was beneath the fear and the running, wanted to understand what kind of woman fled from an empire most people would kill to be part of. So instead of dragging her back to Chicago in handcuffs, Roman made a different choice. He walked into that waterfront bar, called himself Cole, and lied to her face. Their second meeting happened at a restaurant overlooking the harbor, a small place with white tablecloths and candles flickering in glass jars. Avery arrived 10 minutes early out of habit, already scanning exits and memorizing faces. Cole arrived exactly on time. He wore dark jeans and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking effortlessly expensive in a way that made Avery's second-hand dress feel cheap by comparison. But when he smiled at her, small, genuine, almost shy, the comparison didn't matter anymore. They ordered wine, shared appetizers, talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. Cole asked about her work, and Avery found herself describing cybersecurity projects in vague terms that revealed her competence without exposing her identity. "You're good at what you do," Cole observed. "How can you tell?" "Because you talk about breaking systems the way some people talk about art." Avery felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Most people find it boring. Most people are idiots." She laughed, actually laughed. The sound surprised her so much she almost covered her mouth to stop it. Cole's expression shifted, something warm and unexpected crossing his face. "You should do that more often." "What?" "Laugh, it suits you." Avery looked down at her wine glass, suddenly self-conscious. "I don't have much to laugh about lately." "Then we'll have to fix that." They stayed until the restaurant closed, walked along the waterfront afterward with the harbor lights reflecting off black water. The air smelled like salt and jasmine. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn called out across the darkness. Avery felt the panic she usually carried everywhere start to loosen its grip. "Can I ask you something?" Cole said eventually. "Depends on the question." "The night we met, you said you were running away from everything. Do you regret it?" Avery was quiet for a long time, watching the water. "No," she said finally. "I regret not running sooner." "What were you running from?" "A life that wasn't mine. Choices other people made for me. A future where I was just a piece on someone else's board." Cole stopped walking, turned to face her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're not a piece, Claire. You're the whole damn game." Something in Avery's chest cracked open. Before she could think, before fear could stop her, she kissed him. Cole responded immediately, one hand sliding into her hair, the other finding the small of her back. He kissed her like she was something rare, something worth protecting, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise instead of a transaction. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Avery pressed her forehead against his. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Do what?" "Trust someone. Let them in. I spent my whole life learning how to run. Then we'll learn together." It was the most beautiful lie anyone had ever told her. Over the next 2 months, Avery fell in love with a man who didn't exist. Cole took her to hidden corners of Charleston, rooftop terraces overlooking the city, quiet gardens buried behind historic homes, a jazz club where the music felt sacred. He listened when she talked, challenged her when she retreated into sarcasm, made her feel seen in a way nobody ever had. And slowly, carefully, Avery began to lower her guard. She told him about her childhood, not everything, but pieces. Enough to make him understand why running had become her default response to danger. She didn't mention her father's name, didn't mention Boston, didn't mention the arranged marriage or the empire built on violence. But she told him the truth about the fear. "I spent my whole life being managed," she said one night, lying beside him in his hotel room with rain drumming against the windows. "Like I was an asset instead of a person. Everything I did, every choice I made, it all fed back into someone else's agenda." Cole's fingers traced lazy patterns along her bare shoulder. "Who?" "My father." Avery's voice went flat. "He's a powerful man, connected, the kind of person who makes problems disappear." "And you were a problem?" "I was inventory." She turned to look at him in the darkness. "That's why I ran. Because I realized if I stayed, I'd never belong to myself." Cole was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something raw. "You belong to yourself now." "Do I?" Avery laughed bitterly. "I'm still looking over my shoulder everywhere I go, still jumping at shadows, still waiting for the past to catch up." "It won't." "You can't promise that." "No." Cole pulled her closer. "But I can promise I won't let anyone hurt you." It was the second beautiful lie he told her, and Avery believed it completely. The day everything shattered started like any other. Avery woke in Cole's hotel room with sunlight streaming through the windows and his arm draped across her waist. She felt safe, content, almost normal. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. Avery's stomach dropped. She answered anyway. Hello? Avery? Her father's voice came through the line like ice water. I'm disappointed. Every muscle in Avery's body locked down. She sat up slowly, carefully, trying not to wake Cole beside her. How did you get this number? She whispered. Did you really think you could hide from me? Anthony Valline's tone carried the same cold authority she remembered from childhood. Did you really believe distance would make you free? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult me. He paused. You've been in Charleston for 8 months, living under a false name. Quite clever, really. If you'd stayed disciplined, you might have disappeared completely. Avery's hand started shaking. What do you want? I want you to understand something, Avery. The arrangement I made with the Vesper family wasn't a suggestion. It was a contract, and you violated it. I'm not going back. You don't have a choice. His voice went colder. Roman Vesper is already there, has been for months. Tell me, does he still call himself Cole, or has he finally told you the truth? The phone slipped from Avery's hand. Roman Vesper. The name her father had spoken 8 months ago when he informed her of the arranged marriage. She turned slowly to look at the man sleeping beside her, the man who'd rescued her from danger, who'd made her feel safe, who'd promised her freedom. Cole. No. Roman. And in one terrible, devastating instant, Avery understood exactly what had happened. He'd been hunting her from the beginning. Every moment between them had been part of the trap, every promise a lie. She scrambled out of bed, grabbing clothes with shaking hands, trying not to scream or vomit or break down completely. Roman woke as she reached the door. Claire, wait! But Avery was already gone, running barefoot down the hotel corridor with her father's voice still echoing in her skull and her entire world collapsing behind her. Avery ran until her lungs burned and her bare feet left bloody prints on the hotel hallway carpet. She slammed through the emergency exit door, taking the stairs 3 at a time, her vision blurring with tears and rage and something darker than either. Betrayal. The word tasted like copper in her mouth. She burst out onto the street into blinding Charleston sunlight, the heat hitting her like a physical blow. People stared. A woman in a half-buttoned dress, barefoot, moving like something hunted. Avery didn't care. She flagged down a taxi with shaking hands, gave Lena's address, and sat in the back seat trying not to scream. Roman Vesper. The name kept circling through her mind like a razor blade, cutting deeper each time. He'd known exactly who she was from the beginning, had watched her, followed her, built a relationship on lies so complete, so perfect, that she'd fallen in love with a ghost. Her father's voice echoed in her skull. Roman Vesper is already there, has been for months, every date, every kiss, every whispered promise in the darkness, all of it calculated, all of it part of the trap. The taxi pulled up outside Lena's building. Avery threw cash at the driver and ran inside, taking the stairs instead of waiting for the ancient elevator. She pounded on Lena's door with both fists. Lena, open up! The door swung open. Lena took one look at Avery's face and pulled her inside without a word. Avery collapsed onto the couch, her whole body shaking. He lied about everything. The words stuck in her throat like broken glass. His name isn't Cole. It's Roman Vesper, the man my father arranged for me to marry. He's been here the whole time. Lena went pale. Jesus Christ! He played me. Avery's voice cracked. For months. He made me believe she couldn't finish, couldn't say out loud how completely she'd been destroyed. Lena sat down beside her, gripping her hand tight. What are you going to do? I don't know. Avery wiped her face with trembling hands. My father knows where I am. Roman knows. There's nowhere left to run. Then stop running. Avery looked at her best friend like she'd lost her mind. What? You spent 8 months hiding. 8 months looking over your shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, it dropped. Now what? Now I disappear again. Change cities. Change names. And then what? Lena's voice went hard. You run forever? You let these men control your entire life without ever fighting back? I can't fight them. Why not? Because they're... Avery stopped. Because they're powerful. Because they're dangerous. Because fighting back was how people got hurt or disappeared or worse. But suddenly those reasons felt like chains instead of logic. You're a cybersecurity expert, Lena said quietly. You can break into systems most people don't even know exist. You've spent your whole life inside that world. If anyone can hurt them, really hurt them, it's you. Something cold and sharp unfurled in Avery's chest. Revenge. The thought tasted dangerous, intoxicating, wrong in all the ways that felt right. I need time to think, Avery said finally. You can stay here as long as you need. But before Avery could respond, her phone buzzed. Incoming call. Cole. No. Roman. She stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the decline button. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to block the number, to never hear his voice again. But beneath the rage and betrayal, something worse was lurking. She wanted to hear him try to explain. Avery answered, said nothing. Claire. Roman's voice came through tight, controlled, barely holding something massive behind it. Don't hang up, please. My name isn't Claire. Her voice sounded dead, hollow. But you already knew that. Silence on the other end, then, I know, I've always known. How long were you planning to keep lying? I wasn't... He stopped, started again. It's complicated. No, it's really fucking simple. Avery's hand tightened around the phone until her knuckles went white. You hunted me down, fed me lies, made me believe I was safe, and the whole time you were just delivering me back to my father like a lost package. That's not what this is. Then what is it, Roman? His real name felt like poison on her tongue. What exactly have you been doing for the past 2 months? Another long silence. When Roman spoke again, his voice carried something raw, broken. Falling in love with you. Avery's breath caught. I know you don't believe me, he continued. I know you think everything between us was fake, but it wasn't, not after the first week, not after I started actually talking to you instead of just watching you. You don't get to say that. Tears burned Avery's eyes. You don't get to lie to me for months and then claim it was real. I'm not claiming anything. I'm telling you the truth. You wouldn't know the truth if it shot you. Meet me. Roman's voice went urgent. One conversation, face to face. If you still want to disappear afterward, I won't stop you. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I'm the only person who knows exactly how dangerous your father is. He paused. And I'm the only person who can help you survive what's coming next. The line went dead. Avery sat frozen, staring at the phone in her hand. Don't do it, Lena said immediately. Whatever you're thinking, don't. I have to. Avery, he knows things I need to know. She stood up, her decision already made. About my father, about the arrangement, about what happens next. He'll manipulate you. Probably. Avery grabbed her shoes from where she'd dropped them by the door. But he's right about one thing. I can't keep running blind. They met at the harbor 2 hours later. Roman stood at the far end of a fishing pier, hands in his pockets, staring out at the water like he was trying to find something in the gray-blue distance. He wore the same dark jeans and white shirt from that morning. In the harsh afternoon light, he looked different, older, more dangerous. The careful mask he'd worn as Cole was gone, replaced by something harder. Avery approached slowly, each step feeling like walking toward a cliff edge. Roman turned when he heard her footsteps. His face was unreadable, all sharp lines and controlled tension. But his eyes gave him away. They looked haunted. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. Avery stopped 10 feet away, keeping distance between them like armor. Start talking. Roman took a breath. 6 months ago, my father told me about the arrangement, showed me your picture, said you were leverage, a way to secure our position with your father's political connections. And you agreed. I didn't disagree. His jaw tightened. In my world, you don't get to choose your alliances. You inherit them. Your father and mine made a deal, and we were both pieces in it. So you came to drag me back. That was the plan, yes. Roman's voice went quieter. But then I started watching you, learning your routine, seeing how you moved through the world like you were constantly calculating escape routes. He paused. You were so careful, so disciplined. I realized you'd spent your whole life being hunted in one way or another. And that made you feel sorry for me? It made me curious. Something shifted in his expression. Everyone in our world wants something from someone. Power, money, leverage. But you just wanted to disappear. To exist without being owned. I'd never met anyone like that. Avery's throat tightened. So instead of kidnapping me, you decided to seduce me? I decided to meet you. Roman took a step closer. Just once. Just to understand who you were beneath the fear. That night at the bar, when that drunk got aggressive and I stepped in, I saw something in your eyes. This mix of strength and terror. Like you were always ready to fight but exhausted from fighting. Don't. I'm not trying to manipulate you, Avery. I'm trying to explain. Explain what? How you lied to my face for 2 months? How you made me fall in love with someone who doesn't even exist? Cole doesn't exist. Roman's voice went rough. But everything I told you, everything I felt that was real, I just couldn't tell you my name without destroying everything. You destroyed it anyway? I know. They stood in silence, the harbor wind cutting between them. Finally, Avery spoke. What happens now? You drag me back to Chicago? Force me to go through with the wedding? No. She looked up sharply. No? I'm not taking you anywhere you don't want to go. Roman's expression was unreadable. But you need to understand something. Your father isn't going to let this go. Neither is mine. The arrangement was never just about marriage. It's about territory, political power, criminal infrastructure. You running doesn't end that. It just makes you a problem they need to solve. So I'm trapped either way. Not necessarily. Roman moved closer, and Avery forced herself not to step back. There's a third option. What? We go through with the wedding, make it look real, but behind the scenes we build our own position, use the alliance to protect ourselves instead of serving our fathers. Avery stared at him. You're insane. Maybe. A bitter smile touched his mouth. But it's the only way both of us survive this. I don't trust you. I know. I don't even know if I can stand to look at you without wanting to... She stopped, her voice breaking. I understand. Roman's voice went soft. But trust isn't required, just strategy. And what makes you think I'd ever agree to marry you now? Because you're smart enough to know that running again won't work. He held her gaze. Your father found you once. He'll find you again. But if you're married to me, if you're officially part of the Vesper family, he loses leverage. You become mine instead of his. I don't want to belong to anyone. Then don't. Roman's expression shifted into something fierce. Marry me on paper. Let me stand between you and your father. But behind closed doors, you do whatever the hell you want. Go to school, build a career, disappear into your work. I won't stop you. Why would you do that? Because I meant what I said earlier. His voice dropped to something barely audible. I love you, and I'd rather spend the rest of my life watching you hate me than see you destroyed by men who treat you like property. Avery felt something crack inside her chest. I need time, she whispered. You don't have time. Roman pulled out his phone, showed her a text message. Your father's flying into Charleston tomorrow. He's bringing people. If you're not with me when he arrives, he'll take you by force. The blood drained from Avery's face. Come with me to Chicago tonight, Roman said. Let me keep you safe while we figure this out. I have resources, security, ways to buy us time. So I trade one prison for another, or you trade certain destruction for a chance to survive. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. I know you don't believe me. I know I destroyed any chance of you trusting me, but I'm asking anyway. Come with me. Let me protect you. Why? Because I failed you once already. Roman's voice went raw. I won't do it again. Avery looked at the man in front of her, the man who'd lied about his name, his life, his intentions, the man who'd made her feel safe only to rip that safety away, the man who was now offering her survival wrapped in control. Every instinct told her to run, but somewhere beneath the rage and betrayal, a quieter voice whispered something darker. She couldn't keep running forever, and Roman Vesper, liar, heir, hunter, might be the only person who could keep her alive long enough to find another way out. If I go with you, Avery said slowly, I'm not promising anything. Not the wedding, not forgiveness, not trust. I'm not asking for any of that. And if you try to trap me, if you lock me in or control me or treat me like property, I will burn your entire world down. Do you understand? Roman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect? Maybe. Or fear. I understand. Then I'll come. The words tasted like surrender. But, Roman, if you're lying about any of this, if this is just another game, it's not. Then prove it. The private jet to Chicago left at midnight. Avery sat in a leather seat near the window, watching Charleston disappear beneath them in a sprawl of lights and darkness. She felt numb, hollowed out, like someone had reached inside her chest and removed everything vital, leaving only rage and exhaustion behind. Roman sat across from her, giving her space. He'd spent the past 6 hours making arrangements, packing her belongings from Lena's apartment, coordinating security, making phone calls in low, controlled tones to people Avery couldn't hear. Now, in the silence of the jet cabin, he finally spoke. I know this doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry. Avery didn't look at him. You're right, it doesn't. I should have told you the truth earlier. When? After the first date? The first time we slept together? Or maybe when I told you about my father and you pretended not to know exactly who he was? Roman went quiet. There was no good time, Avery continued, her voice flat. Because there's no version of this story where you're not the villain. I know. Do you? She finally turned to look at him. Do you have any idea what it feels like to realize that everything you believed about someone was a lie? That every moment you felt safe was just part of the trap? No? Roman's expression remained unreadable. But I know what it's like to realize you've destroyed the only thing that ever mattered. Don't, Avery's voice cracked. Don't make yourself the victim here. I'm not trying to... You are. She stood up abruptly, unable to sit still any longer. You're sitting there looking broken and tortured like somehow that makes what you did okay. Like your guilt absolves you. It doesn't. Then stop talking like it does. Roman stood as well, moving toward her slowly. What do you want from me, Avery? You want me to apologize? I already did. You want me to beg? I will. You want me to walk away and never speak to you again? Say the word and I'm gone. I want you to have never lied in the first place. Her voice broke completely. I want to go back to that bar and tell you to fuck off before you could destroy me. I know. But I can't. Tears burned down her face. Because it already happened. You already did this. And now I have to live with the fact that I was stupid enough to fall in love with someone who was hunting me the whole time. You weren't stupid. Yes, I was. Avery's laugh came out bitter and broken. I was so desperate for someone to see me, really see me, that I ignored every warning sign, every moment that felt too perfect, every time you said exactly what I needed to hear. I meant it. It doesn't matter if you meant it. She wiped her face angrily. Because the foundation was built on lies. And you can't build something real on a foundation that rotten. Roman looked like she'd shot him. So what now? We just... What? Exist in the same space pretending none of it happened? I don't know. Avery's voice went quiet. But I know I can't keep having this conversation. Because every time I look at you, I see Cole. And Cole doesn't exist. He never did. He did. Roman's voice was barely audible. For 2 months, I was more myself with you than I've been my entire life. The name was fake. Everything else was real. How am I supposed to believe that? You're not. He stepped back, giving her space again. All I can do is show you, through actions, not words, and hope that eventually, maybe, you'll see the difference. Avery didn't respond, just turned back to the window, watching the darkness scroll past below. They didn't speak again for the rest of the flight. The Vesper estate sat on 40 acres outside Chicago, a sprawling stone mansion surrounded by iron gates, security cameras, and men who moved with the controlled efficiency of military training. The place looked like old money, and new violence had mated and produced something beautiful and terrible. Roman led Avery through the front entrance into a foyer with marble floors and a chandelier that cost more than most people made in a year. Everything was clean lines and expensive taste, a fortress disguised as luxury. Your room is upstairs, Roman said quietly. Private, locked from the inside. You have full access to the house and grounds, but security will accompany you if you leave the property. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. He met her eyes. There's a difference. Is there? Roman didn't answer that, just gestured toward the stairs. I'll have someone bring your things up. If you need anything, I won't. He nodded once, his expression unreadable, and walked away down a corridor lined with oil paintings of dead men in expensive suits. Avery climbed the stairs alone. The room Roman had given her was enormous. King-sized bed, attached bathroom, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. It should have felt luxurious. Instead, it felt like a gilded cage. She tried the door. It locked from the inside like Roman had promised. She checked the windows. They opened onto a third-story drop with no fire escape. Avery sat on the edge of the bed and buried her face in her hands, trying not to scream or cry or break down completely. She'd traded Charleston for Chicago, traded freedom for survival, traded one form of control for another. And somewhere in the mansion below, the man who'd destroyed her was probably congratulating himself for bringing her home. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Please tell me you're okay. Avery stared at the message for a long time before responding. I don't know what I am anymore. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, do you want me to come get you? Avery's finger hovered over the keyboard. Yes, no, maybe. She didn't know, couldn't think clearly enough to decide. Before she could respond, someone knocked on her door. What? Avery called out. It's Gina. I brought your things. Avery opened the door to find a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression holding her suitcase. Behind her, 2 more staff members carried boxes from Lena's apartment. Mr. Vesper said you might be hungry, Gina said, setting the suitcase inside. Kitchen's on the first floor. I can bring something up if you'd rather stay here. I'd rather leave. Gina's expression didn't change. I'm sure you would, but since you're staying, you might as well eat. I'm not hungry. You will be. The older woman looked at Avery with something that might have been sympathy. This place can feel like a lot at first, but it's safer than you think. Safe for who? For you. Gina headed toward the door, then paused. Mr. Vesper gave orders that you're not to be disturbed unless you ask. That includes him. He won't come near this room unless you invite him. Why are you telling me this? Because you look like someone waiting for the next trap. Gina's voice softened slightly. And I want you to know, whatever else Roman Vesper is, he keeps his word. If he says you're safe here, you're safe here. She left before Avery could respond. Avery stood in the doorway, staring after her, wondering if that was true. Wondering if any man who'd built his life on lies and violence could ever actually be trusted to keep anyone safe. But 3 days passed in careful isolation. Avery stayed in her room mostly, only venturing out for food or to walk the grounds under the watchful eyes of security personnel who kept their distance but never disappeared completely. The estate was beautiful in the way prisons could be beautiful, all manicured lawns and Italian stonework and fountains that looked like art. But beauty didn't make it freedom. Roman kept his word. He didn't approach her, didn't knock on her door, didn't force conversations. Avery saw him occasionally through windows, moving through the house with that same controlled grace, making phone calls in his study, standing on the terrace smoking a cigarette and staring at nothing. He looked exhausted. Good, Avery thought viciously. On the 4th morning, Gina knocked and told her Roman's father wanted to meet her. Why? Because you're living in his house. Gina's tone was matter-of-fact. And because the wedding is in 2 months. He wants to see what his son dragged home. Avery's stomach clenched. Tell him I'm not feeling well. I'll tell him you'll be down in an hour. Gina's expression was firm. This isn't optional, Avery. You're in their world now. The sooner you learn how to navigate it, the better. She left before Avery could argue. Avery dressed carefully. Black pants, simple blouse, hair pulled back, armor disguised as normalcy. Then she went downstairs to meet the man who'd orchestrated her entire life falling apart. Marcus Vesper waited in a study lined with leather-bound books and expensive whiskey. He was older than she'd expected. Mid-60s, silver hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He looked like Roman would in 30 years. dangerous and controlled and utterly certain of his place in the world. Avery Valine. His voice carried authority like a weapon. Sit. It wasn't a request. Avery sat. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one. He slid one across the desk toward her. Your father tells me you're difficult. My father tells people a lot of things. A faint smile touched Marcus's mouth. True. But in this case, I'm inclined to believe him. You've caused significant problems, Ms. Valine, running away, forcing my son to waste months tracking you down, complicating an arrangement that should have been simple. I didn't ask for the arrangement. No one asked you. His voice went colder. That's not how this works. You were born into a particular world, one with rules and expectations. You don't get to opt out because you find it inconvenient. I'm not property. Everyone's property in one form or another. Marcus took a slow sip of whiskey. The only question is who owns you. Your father had his claim. Now my son does. The transition should have been seamless. Except your son lied to me for months. Yes, he did. Marcus's expression didn't change. And judging by the way he's been walking around this house like a ghost, I'd say he's paying for it. But that's between you and him. What concerns me is whether you're going to continue being a problem. What does that mean? It means the wedding happens in 8 weeks. He leaned back in his chair. You can walk down that aisle willingly, or we can make other arrangements. But one way or another, this alliance gets finalized. Avery's hands clenched into fists. And if I refuse, then your father and I will have a different conversation. One that ends with you back in Boston under significantly less pleasant circumstances. He paused. My son seems to think he can protect you. Give you freedom within the marriage. That's his choice. But understand something, Ms. Valine. If you run again, if you cause more problems, if you make me regret allowing Roman's sentimentality to dictate strategy, I will handle you myself. And I am significantly less sympathetic than my son. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Do we understand each other? Marcus asked. Perfectly. Avery's voice was ice. Good. He stood, dismissing her without another word. Gina will help you prepare for the engagement announcement next week. Try not to embarrass the family. Avery walked out of the study on shaking legs, her mind racing. 8 weeks. She had 8 weeks to figure out how to survive this. 8 weeks before she became Mrs. Roman Vesper in front of God and criminals and everyone her father had ever used as leverage. 8 weeks before the cage locked permanently, unless she found another way out. That night, unable to sleep, Avery pulled out her laptop and started digging. If she was trapped inside the Vesper Empire, she needed to understand exactly what kind of trap she was in. She routed her connection through proxies, encrypted her traffic, and started searching. Roman Vesper, Marcus Vesper, the Vesper family empire. The results painted a picture of calculated violence dressed in legitimate business, real estate holdings, security companies, political donations, and beneath it all, buried in court documents and sealed records and whispered allegations, the truth. Racketeering, money laundering, connections to organized crime that stretched back 3 generations. The Vespers weren't just wealthy, they were dangerous. And Avery was about to become one of them. She kept digging, following threads deeper into the criminal infrastructure. That's when she found the first mention of Victor Sarin, a rival crime lord based in New York with his own empire built on violence and territorial control. Recent articles mention tensions between the Vesper and Sarin organizations, turf disputes, failed negotiations, rumors of impending war. Avery's stomach turned cold. She dug deeper, cross-referencing dates and locations, following money trails through shell corporations and offshore accounts. And slowly, horribly, a pattern emerged. The wedding wasn't just about alliance between her father and the Vespers. It was bait, a trap designed to bring Roman into a specific location at a specific time where Victor Sarin could make a move. Avery's hands started shaking as the pieces fell into place. Her father wasn't trying to secure power through her marriage. He was selling Roman out, trading one alliance for another, using her as the lure to deliver the Vesper heir directly into enemy hands. And after Roman was dead, she'd be handed to whoever paid the highest price. Avery sat back from her laptop, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She should tell Roman, warn him that the wedding was a setup. But even as the thought formed, another voice whispered something darker. If Roman died, she'd be free. No wedding, no cage, no man controlling her future. The thought made her feel sick, but it also made her feel something worse, tempted. She closed the laptop with shaking hands and stared at the wall, trying to figure out who she was becoming. A woman who could let the man who'd lied to her walk into a trap and die? Or a woman who would save him despite everything he'd done? Avery didn't know the answer, and that terrified her more than anything else. The next morning, she found Roman on the terrace. He stood at the railing with coffee in hand, staring out at the grounds. He looked tired, worn down, like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," Avery said. Roman turned, surprise flickering across his face. "About what?" "About Victor Sarin." Every muscle in Roman's body went tense. "Where did you hear that name?" "I'm a cybersecurity expert, Roman. Did you really think I'd sit in this mansion without doing research?" She moved closer. "I know about the territorial disputes. I know about the failed negotiations. And I know—" She stopped, took a breath, made a decision that would change everything. "I know my father's planning to have you killed at the wedding." Roman's face went completely still. Not shocked, not disbelieving, just absolutely motionless, like every emotion had been locked down behind steel. "Say that again," he said quietly. "Your wedding." Avery's voice shook despite her effort to keep it steady. "It's a trap. Victor Sarin and my father made a deal. They're going to kill you during the ceremony." Roman set his coffee cup down on the terrace railing with careful precision. His hands didn't shake. His expression didn't crack. But something in his eyes went dark and cold, the kind of cold that preceded violence. "How do you know this?" "I hacked into my father's offshore accounts, cross-referenced payments with dates and locations, found encrypted communications between him and Sarin's organization." She pulled out her phone, showed him screenshots she'd taken. "They've been planning this for months, before you even came to Charleston." Roman took the phone, scrolling through the evidence with that same terrifying stillness. His jaw tightened. The muscle in his temple jumped once. "The arrangement was never about alliance," Avery continued. "My father was selling you out from the beginning, using me as bait to get you in one place where Sarin's men could make their move. And afterward," her voice cracked, "afterward he was going to hand me over to Sarin as part of the deal." Roman looked up from the phone. "Why are you telling me this?" The question landed like a blade between Avery's ribs. "What?" "You hate me." His voice was flat, empty. "I destroyed your trust, lied to you for months, dragged you into this nightmare. So why warn me? Why not just let me walk into the trap and finally be free?" Avery stared at him, her chest tight. "Because I'm not a murderer. Everyone's a murderer, given the right circumstances. Maybe—" She stepped closer, anger flaring beneath the fear. "But I'm not going to become one just to escape you. I'm not my father, I'm not you, and I'm sure as hell not going to let innocent people die at a wedding just because it's convenient for me." Something flickered across Roman's face. Innocent people. The guests, the staff, everyone who'll be there when Sarin's men start shooting. Her voice went raw. "You think I can live with that? You think I can just walk away knowing I could have stopped it?" Roman was quiet for a long moment, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "You could have used this as leverage, could have demanded your freedom in exchange for the information." "I know." "But you didn't." "No." Avery met his eyes. "Because despite everything you've done, despite how much I hate you right now, I don't want you dead. And I don't want blood on my hands. So take the information, cancel the wedding, do whatever you need to do, but don't make me regret saving your life." She turned to walk away. Roman's hand shot out, catching her wrist. Not hard, not controlling, just enough to stop her. "Thank you," he said quietly. Avery looked down at his hand on her wrist, then back up at his face. "Don't thank me, just survive." She pulled away and left him standing alone on the terrace with evidence of betrayal glowing on her phone screen. Within an hour, the estate transformed into a war room. Men in expensive suits filled Marcus Vesper's study. Roman's father, his top advisors, security chiefs, lawyers who specialized in making problems disappear. Avery watched from the doorway as Roman laid out everything she'd discovered, his voice cold and controlled, presenting the evidence like a prosecutor building a case. Marcus listened without interrupting. When Roman finished, the old man poured himself whiskey with steady hands. Victor Sarin, Marcus's voice carried contempt. I should have seen this coming. He's been circling for months. The question is what we do about it, one of the advisors said. We cancel the wedding, Roman said immediately. Cut off their access, change the timeline. No. Marcus's voice cut through the room like a blade. We don't cancel anything. Roman's head snapped up. They're planning to kill me. I heard you. Marcus took a slow sip of whiskey. But if we cancel now, they'll know we found out. They'll adapt. Come at us a different way. And next time, we won't have advance warning. So what are you suggesting? We let them think the trap is still set. Marcus's smile was cold and sharp. And we spring our own. The room went quiet. You want to go through with the wedding, Roman said flatly. Modified, controlled, with our people in position. Marcus leaned forward. Saren thinks he's walking into an execution. Instead, he walks into an ambush. We eliminate the threat permanently and send a message to anyone else considering moves against this family. You're talking about a massacre. I'm talking about survival. Marcus's voice went hard. This is what happens when people mistake civility for weakness. When they think we've gone soft, we remind them exactly what the Vesper name means. Roman's hands clenched into fists on the desk. And Avery? What about her? She's the bait in their plan. If we go through with this, she's still the target. Then we protect her. Marcus dismissed the concern with a wave. Heavy security, bulletproof glass. She walks down the aisle, says the vows, plays her part. When Saren's men make their move, we're ready. No. Roman's voice went dangerous. I'm not using her as bait. She's already bait. Marcus's tone was matter of fact. Whether we cancel or proceed, Avery Valine is a target now. At least this way we control the circumstances. I said no. Father and son stared at each other across the desk. The tension in the room became suffocating. Finally, Marcus spoke. You've let your feelings compromise your judgment. My feelings have nothing to do with this. Don't they? Marcus's expression was cold. You spent 2 months in Charleston playing house with this girl instead of dragging her home the way I ordered. Now you're willing to throw away strategic advantage to protect her. That's not rational thinking, Roman. That's emotion. Then call it emotion. Roman's voice went quiet, deadly. But I'm not putting her in the line of fire. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. Roman stood up, his decision made. We cancel the wedding, move Avery somewhere safe, and we deal with Saren the old-fashioned way, quietly, without civilian casualties. Marcus stood as well, his face hardening into something brutal. If you cancel this wedding, you're making an enemy of Anthony Valine. He's expecting this alliance. If it falls apart now, he'll assume we're backing out, and he'll retaliate. Then let him. You're willing to start a war over one girl? I'm willing to protect someone who saved my life. Roman's voice carried finality. With or without your support. The room held its breath. Marcus studied his son for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fine. You want to play it your way? Go ahead. But when this falls apart, when Saren comes for us anyway, and bodies start piling up, remember that I gave you a chance to handle this strategically. He walked out, leaving Roman standing alone in the study with advisors who suddenly looked uncertain about whose orders to follow. Avery was packing when Roman found her. She'd dragged her suitcase onto the bed and was throwing clothes inside with shaking hands, not bothering to fold anything. She looked up when Roman entered, her face pale. I heard yelling, she said. My father wants to use you as bait. Set a trap at the wedding with you in the center of it. Roman leaned against the doorframe, exhaustion written across his face. I told him no. What happens now? I'm moving you somewhere safe. Calling off the wedding, dealing with Saren and your father separately. Avery's hand stilled on the suitcase. That starts a war. Probably. People will die. They were going to die anyway. Roman's voice was hollow. At least this way, you're not one of them. Roman, don't. He held up a hand. Don't try to talk me out of this. You gave me information that saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you survive what comes next. Avery stared at him, something complicated twisting in her chest. Why? Why what? Why protect me? You could use this. Let your father's plan move forward. Eliminate Sareen and my father in one move. Consolidate power. That's what someone in your position should do. Maybe. Roman's expression was unreadable. But I'm tired of doing what I should do. What's strategic? What makes sense for the family? He met her eyes. For once in my life, I want to do something that's just right. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then. The words hung between them like a promise. Before Avery could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She answered. Hello? Avery. Her father's voice came through smooth and cold. I understand you've been doing research. Every muscle in Avery's body locked down. Beside her, Roman went completely still. How did you... she started. Did you really think I wouldn't monitor your internet activity? Anthony Volin's laugh was cruel. Every proxy you used, every encrypted connection, every database you accessed, I watched it all happen in real time. Avery's hands started shaking. You knew. Of course I knew. And I let you continue because I wanted to see what you'd do with the information. He paused. I must say I'm disappointed. I raised you to be smarter than this. To understand that loyalty, real loyalty, means keeping your mouth shut even when it hurts. I'm not loyal to you. No, you're loyal to Roman Vesper, a man who lied to your face for months, a man who hunted you down like an animal. Tell me, Avery, what does that say about your judgment? What do you want? I want you to understand the consequences of betrayal. Anthony's voice went colder. You warned Roman about the trap. Fine. That buys him a little time, but it also means I need to adjust my strategy. And adjustments, my dear daughter, tend to be messy. If you touch him, I won't touch him. Anthony sounded almost amused. I don't need to, because I have something he wants more than his own life. I have you. The line went dead. Avery stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, her mind trying to process what had just happened. What did he say? Roman asked urgently. He knows. Her voice came out hollow. He's been watching everything. He knows I warned you. He knows. She stopped, realization crashing over her like ice water. He's coming for me. Then we leave. Right now. Roman pulled out his own phone, already dialing. I'll have the jet ready in 20 minutes. We'll disappear. Somewhere he can't find you. He'll find me. Avery's laugh came out broken. He always finds me. That's what he does. That's what I've been running for my whole life. Not this time. Yes, this time. She looked at Roman with something like despair. Because I'm not just running from him anymore. I'm running from Saren, from your father, from an entire criminal infrastructure that sees me as leverage. Where exactly do you think I can hide from that? Roman's jaw tightened. Then we fight. We can't fight them all. We can try. And how many people die while we try? Avery's voice cracked. Your family, your people, innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire, all because I couldn't just stay quiet and let things happen. Don't. Roman moved closer, his voice fierce. Don't blame yourself for warning me. You did the right thing. Did I? Tears burned down her face. Because it feels like I just made everything worse, like I traded one trap for a bigger one. Before Roman could respond, glass shattered downstairs. Then gunfire. Roman grabbed Avery and pulled her to the floor as bullets tore through the bedroom window above them. Outside, men were shouting. More gunfire erupted, controlled, professional, terrifyingly close. Stay down, Roman ordered, pulling a gun from somewhere inside his jacket. They're here already. Avery's voice was barely a whisper. How? Your father must have sent them the moment you answered the phone. Roman moved toward the door in a crouch, checking the hallway. He wanted to catch us before we could run. More gunfire downstairs, screaming, the heavy thud of bodies hitting marble floors. Roman pulled out his phone, tried to call security. The line was dead. He tried another number. Dead. All communications cut. They're jamming signals, he said grimly. Professional operation. They're not here to take prisoners. Avery's breath came in short, panicked gasps. What do we do? There's a safe room in the basement. Reinforced steel, independent power and communications. He grabbed her hand, pulling her to her feet. We get there. We can call for backup. They moved into the hallway, Roman leading with his gun raised. The house was chaos, gunfire, shouting, alarms blaring. At the top of the stairs, they saw 3 bodies, Vesper security personnel, dead. Avery's stomach turned, but she forced herself to keep moving. They made it halfway down the stairs before a man appeared at the bottom, tall, armed, wearing tactical gear. He raised his weapon toward Roman. Roman fired first. The man went down. They ran through the foyer, stepping over bodies, heading toward the basement entrance. More gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets chewed through wood paneling and shattered expensive vases. Roman shoved Avery through the basement door and slammed it shut behind them. Heavy steel, reinforced. The gunfire became muffled thumps against metal. They descended stairs 2 at a time, Roman still gripping her hand. At the bottom, another steel door. Roman punched in a code. The door swung open into a windowless room lined with monitors, weapons racks, emergency supplies. The safe room. Roman locked the door behind them and immediately went to the communications panel. Tried the phone. Radio, satellite uplink, all dead. They cut the lines, he said quietly. Everything's down. How long until backup arrives? There is no backup. Roman's expression was grim. Security's been neutralized. Communications are jammed. My father's at a meeting across town. We're alone. Then we're trapped. Yes. Avery leaned against the steel wall, her whole body shaking. This is it, isn't it? This is how it ends. No. Roman moved to the weapons rack, pulling down rifles and ammunition. This is how we fight. Against how many? However many it takes. He handed her a gun. Can you shoot? Avery looked at the weapon in her hands, feeling its weight. Her father had made sure she knew how to handle firearms. Insurance, he'd called it. Protection. Yes, she whispered. Good. Roman checked his own weapon with practiced efficiency. Because in about 5 minutes, they're going to breach that door. And when they do, we put down as many as we can before... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They waited in silence, listening to the sounds above. Footsteps. Voices. Orders being shouted in languages Avery didn't recognize. Then the cutting torch started. Sparks began appearing around the steel door frame. Bright orange, eating through metal with terrifying efficiency. Roman, Avery said quietly. Yeah? I'm sorry for everything, for running, for not trusting you, for... Don't. His voice was rough. Don't apologize for surviving. That's all you've ever done. Survive. And you're going to keep doing it, even if I don't. That's not... The door exploded inward. 3 men in tactical gear rushed through the opening. Roman fired immediately, dropping 1. Avery fired on pure instinct, her bullet catching the second man in the shoulder. He went down screaming. The third man returned fire. Bullets ricocheted off concrete walls. Roman shoved Avery behind a metal cabinet and fired again. The third man fell. Silence. Then footsteps. More of them. Roman met Avery's eyes across the safe room. I love you. Don't. Her voice broke. Don't say goodbye. I'm not saying goodbye. He reloaded his weapon with steady hands. I'm telling you the truth. Finally. Completely. I love you. I've loved you since that night in Charleston when you laughed for the first time and looked surprised by the sound. And if this is the end, I want you to know that every moment with you, even the ones where you hated me, was worth it. Tears streamed down Avery's face. Roman! 5 more men entered the safe room. Roman fired. So did Avery. Bodies fell. Blood painted the concrete floor. One of the men got a shot off that caught Roman in the side. He staggered, but didn't fall, returning fire until his magazine was empty. Then a voice came from the doorway, calm, controlled, terrifyingly familiar. Enough! Avery looked up to see her father standing in the shattered doorway, flanked by armed men. Anthony Valine looked exactly as she remembered. Expensive suit, cold eyes, the kind of presence that sucked oxygen from rooms. Hello, Avery, he said calmly. I believe we need to have a conversation about loyalty. Roman raised his weapon, empty but defiant. One of Anthony's men shot him, not fatally, in the leg. Roman went down hard, gasping. his gun clattering across concrete. "No!" Avery screamed, moving toward him. Two men grabbed her arms, holding her back. "Leave him alive," Anthony ordered. "I want him to watch what happens next." He walked into the safe room, his footsteps echoing, and stopped in front of his daughter. "You betrayed me," he said quietly, "warned my enemy, chose his life over our family. Do you understand what that means? It means I'm not your daughter anymore." Anthony's expression didn't change. "No, it means you need to be reminded who you belong to." He pulled out a phone, made a call. "Bring her in." Footsteps approached. Two more men entered, dragging someone between them. Lena. Avery's best friend looked terrified. Bruised face, wrists bound, eyes wide with panic. "Let her go," Avery said immediately, her voice breaking. "She has nothing to do with this." "She has everything to do with this." Anthony's voice was ice. "She helped you run, gave you shelter, enabled your betrayal. That makes her complicit." "Please, you have a choice, Avery." Her father stepped closer. "You can come home. Right now, willingly. Do everything I tell you. Marry whoever I arrange. Never question my authority again, or—" He gestured toward Lena. "Your friend pays the price for your disobedience." Lena's eyes met Avery's across the safe room. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't do it." "Quiet," one of the men holding her snapped. "Choose," Anthony said. "Your freedom or her life. You have 10 seconds. Avery looked at Lena, the only person who'd ever helped her without asking for anything in return. Then at Roman, bleeding on the floor, watching with desperate eyes. Then at her father, the man who'd turned her entire life into a cage. 10 seconds to decide who she was willing to destroy to survive. "Time's up," Anthony said. "Wait." Avery's voice came out steady despite the terror. "I'll come with you. I'll do whatever you want. Just let her go." "Avery? No," Lena started. "Quiet." Anthony held up a hand. "You agree to return to Boston? Resume the arranged marriage? Obey without question?" "Yes. And you understand that if you run again, if you try anything, I won't come after you. I'll come after her. And everyone else you've ever cared about." "I understand." Anthony studied his daughter for a long moment, then nodded. "Release the friend." The men holding Lena let her go. She stumbled forward, looking at Avery with horror. "You can't... Go!" Avery's voice was steady, final. "Don't look back. Don't try to help. Just go." Lena hesitated, tears streaming down her face. "Now!" Anthony ordered. Lena ran. Anthony turned to his daughter. "Say goodbye to Roman Vesper. You won't see him again." Avery looked at Roman, bleeding, broken, staring at her with something beyond despair. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then her father's men were pulling her toward the door, and Roman was shouting her name, and everything was falling apart in ways she'd never imagined. As they dragged her up the stairs, away from the safe room and the man she loved and any chance of freedom, Avery made one final decision. She would survive this. Not by running, not by hiding, not by hoping someone would rescue her. She would survive by becoming something her father would never expect, something dangerous enough to destroy him, even if it meant destroying herself in the process. The private jet to Boston felt like a coffin at 30,000 feet. Avery sat in the back row with zip ties cutting into her wrists, two of her father's men flanking her on either side. Anthony Valine occupied the front of the cabin, working on his laptop like he'd just completed a routine business transaction instead of destroying his daughter's life. Again, Avery's mind raced through possibilities, through exits that didn't exist, through scenarios where she somehow escaped mid-flight. But the men beside her never looked away, never relaxed. They'd been hired for exactly this, to ensure valuable cargo arrived intact. That's all she was now. Cargo. Her thoughts kept circling back to Roman bleeding on that concrete floor, the way he'd looked at her as they dragged her away, like watching something essential being ripped from his chest. She wondered if he was still alive, wondered if her father's men had finished him after she left, wondered if the last thing she'd said to him would be an apology instead of no. She couldn't think about that. Couldn't afford to let grief paralyze her. Survival first, everything else later. The plane landed at a private airfield outside Boston just after midnight. Rain hammered the tarmac as they hustled Avery into a waiting SUV with tinted windows. The city passed in blurred streaks of light and darkness. She recognized the route toward her father's estate in the suburbs, the house where she'd spent 18 years learning how to disappear inside herself. They pulled through iron gates and up a circular driveway to the mansion that looked exactly as she remembered. Red brick, white columns, manicured lawns even in the rain, a prison disguised as privilege. Inside, everything was marble and expensive silence. Her father's men escorted her upstairs to her old bedroom, the one she'd escaped from 8 months ago. They finally cut the zip ties, leaving red welts around her wrists. "Don't try the windows," one of them said. "They're alarmed. Don't try the door. We'll be right outside. Don't try anything clever. Your father's done being patient." They left, locking the door from the outside. Avery stood in the center of the room, her hands shaking, her breath coming in short gasps. The panic she'd been holding back since the safe room finally crashed over her in waves. She pressed her palms against her eyes, forcing herself to breathe, to think, to not completely break down. After 10 minutes, the shaking stopped. After 20, her mind started working again. She examined the room methodically. The windows were indeed alarmed, small sensors visible in the corners. The door was solid oak with a deadbolt on the outside. No phone, no laptop, nothing she could use to communicate with the outside world. But they'd left her clothes, her old clothes from before she ran, including the black jacket hanging in the closet with a hidden pocket she'd sewn into the lining years ago. Avery reached inside and pulled out what she'd left there, a thumb drive, insurance she'd created when she was 16 and first understood what kind of man her father really was. Years of data copied from his private servers, financial records, communications with criminal organizations, evidence of money laundering, racketeering, political corruption, everything she'd need to destroy him. She'd been too afraid to use it then. She wasn't afraid anymore. Avery tucked the drive into her bra, the one place they wouldn't search without her father's direct order, and sat on the bed, planning. Morning came with her father entering without knocking. Anthony Valine looked fresh and rested, wearing an expensive suit and carrying coffee, like this was a normal Tuesday. He sat in the chair by the window, studying his daughter with the same cold assessment he probably gave business investments. "You look terrible," he observed. "You kidnapped me and shot the man I love. Forgive me for not looking refreshed. Roman Vesper's alive." Anthony took a slow sip of coffee. "For now. Marcus pulled him out before my men could finish the job. Apparently his father still has some loyalty left, though I imagine that won't last long once he realizes his son's weakness nearly cost him everything." Relief and terror hit Avery simultaneously. Roman was alive, but barely, and still in danger. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "The same thing I've always wanted: obedience, compliance, for you to understand your role in this family and fulfill it without drama. My role is property. Your role is leverage." Anthony set his coffee down. "You're intelligent, Avery. You've always been intelligent. So stop pretending you don't understand how this works. We're not a normal family. We're a criminal organization. And in criminal organizations, every member serves a purpose. Mine is leadership. Yours is strategic alliance. Through forced marriage. Through advantageous marriage. There's a difference. Not to me." Anthony's expression hardened. "Then let me make the stakes clear. Victor Sarin is still very much interested in acquiring both you and the Vesper territory. If I can't deliver you married to Roman Vesper, I'll deliver you to Sarin instead. He's offered significantly more for you anyway. The only reason I haven't taken his deal is that the Vesper alliance was cleaner, less violent. So I get to choose which monster owns me. Yes, that's exactly the choice." He leaned forward. "You can marry Roman Vesper in 6 weeks and maintain some degree of autonomy within that arrangement, or you can refuse, and I hand you to Victor Sarin, who has considerably less interest in your comfort or survival. Which sounds preferable?" Avery's hands clenched into fists. "I want to see Roman." "Absolutely not. Then I refuse. Everything. The wedding, Sarin, all of it. You'll have to keep me locked in this room forever." "Don't be dramatic." Anthony stood, straightening his suit. "You'll come around. They always do. Hunger has a way of making people reasonable." He walked out, locking the door behind him. True to his word, no one brought food. Hours crawled past. Avery's stomach cramped with hunger. Her mouth went dry. She tried the water in the bathroom sink, but even that had been shut off. This was the punishment, the breaking. Her father had done this before. When she was 14 and tried to run away the first time. 3 days without food, 2 without water. Until she was weak enough to sign the documents he wanted, compliant enough to stop fighting. But Avery wasn't 14 anymore, and she'd learned a few things about survival. She pulled the thumb drive from its hiding place and examined it carefully. Inside was everything she needed, but she had no way to use it, no computer, no phone, no way to transmit the data to anyone who could act on it. Unless. Avery moved to the window and looked out at the grounds. Security cameras everywhere, guards patrolling, but in the distance, past the gardens, she could see the neighbor's property. The Hendersons. Old money family. 2 teenage kids who'd been Avery's classmates once upon a time. Kids who definitely had phones. She examined the window alarm more carefully. Standard magnetic sensor, the kind that triggered when the circuit broke. But if she could bridge the circuit while opening the window, keep the magnetic connection intact, the alarm wouldn't sound. Avery pulled a wire hanger from the closet and carefully bent it into shape. It took 40 minutes of trial and error, her hands shaking from hunger and adrenaline. But finally, she managed to position the wire so the magnetic connection held, even as she slid the window open an inch. No alarm. She opened it wider. Still nothing. The drop to the ground was 20 feet, enough to break bones if she landed wrong. But there was a drain pipe running down the side of the house just within reach. Avery didn't let herself think about it. Just climbed through the window, gripped the drain pipe, and started descending. Her arms screamed, her hands slipped on wet metal. Halfway down, the pipe shifted, pulling away from the wall slightly. She dropped the last 8 feet, hitting the ground hard. Pain shot through her ankle. She bit down on a scream and forced herself upright. Then she ran, across the dark lawn, staying low, avoiding the security lights. Her ankle throbbed with every step, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She reached the hedge line, separating her father's property from the Hendersons, and squeezed through. The Henderson house was dark except for one upstairs window. Avery grabbed a handful of gravel from the driveway and threw it at the glass. Nothing. She threw more. Finally, the window opened. A teenage girl looked out. Emma Henderson, now 17, wearing pajamas and looking confused. "Avery?" Emma whispered. "What the hell? I need your phone, please. It's an emergency." "Are you okay?" "You look—" "Please, Emma. Right now." Something in Avery's voice must have convinced her. Emma disappeared and returned a minute later, creeping downstairs to open the back door. She handed Avery her phone without another question. "Thank you," Avery breathed. "I'll explain everything later, I promise." She limped back toward the hedge line, already dialing. The number she'd memorized from the files on the thumb drive. The FBI field office in Boston, the agent her father had been carefully avoiding for years. It rang twice before a tired voice answered. "Agent Morrison. My name is Avery Valine." The words came out rushed, desperate. "My father is Anthony Valine. I have evidence of racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Multiple murders, including an attempted hit on Roman Vesper that happened less than 12 hours ago." Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you right now?" "His estate, outside Boston. But I can't stay on long. He'll realize I'm gone." "Can you get the evidence to us?" "It's digital, on a thumb drive, but I need protection first. Witness protection. For me and for—" Her voice caught. "For Roman Vesper. He's in Chicago, injured. My father's men tried to kill him." "Ms. Valine, if what you're saying is true, it's true. All of it. And there's more. Victor Sarin, he's planning something at the wedding. My father's helping him. It's all in the files." "What wedding?" "Mine." Avery's laugh came out broken. "They're planning to kill Roman Vesper at our wedding. Use it as cover for a territorial takeover. But if you move fast enough, if you can get warrants and move on both organizations simultaneously, we'll need the evidence first. Then meet me." Avery gave him an address. A coffee shop in Cambridge she remembered from college. Public. Safe. 2 hours. I'll have everything you need. "Miss Valine." 2 hours, Agent Morrison. And bring protection, because if my father finds me before then, I'm dead." She hung up and limped back toward Emma's house to return the phone. But before she reached the door, hands grabbed her from behind. Her father's men. They must have been watching the property lines. Must have caught her on camera. One of them wrapped a hand around her mouth before she could scream. The other grabbed her injured ankle, sending white-hot pain shooting through her leg. They dragged her back across the lawn toward the house. Anthony Valine waited on the back terrace, his expression carved from ice. "I'm disappointed, Avery. I really thought 3 days would be enough to break you. Apparently, I underestimated your stubbornness." They forced her to her knees in front of him. Her ankle screamed, her whole body shook. "Who did you call?" Anthony asked calmly. "No one." He backhanded her. The impact snapped her head sideways, blood filling her mouth. "Who did you call?" "No one," she repeated through split lips. Anthony pulled out his phone, made a call. "Check the neighboring properties, find out if any phones were used in the last 10 minutes. If anyone helped her, bring them here." "No!" Avery lunged forward, but the men held her down. "Leave them alone. They didn't—" "Then tell me who you called." Avery's mind raced. If she told him about Morrison, he'd kill the FBI agent before the meeting happened. If she stayed quiet, he'd hurt Emma and her family. "I called Roman," she lied quickly. "Used a neighbor's phone, told him where I was, that's all." Anthony studied her face, trying to read the truth. "Roman Vesper can barely walk right now. Even if he wanted to rescue you, he's in no condition." "Then I guess it was a wasted call." He stared at her for another long moment, then nodded to his men. "Lock her in the basement. No windows, no light, and definitely no food until the wedding." "The wedding's in 6 weeks." "Not anymore." Anthony's smile was cruel. "It's tomorrow. I've moved the timeline up. You and Roman Vesper will be married in a private ceremony with minimal witnesses. Then I'll decide whether to keep you alive afterward." Terror flooded Avery's system. "Roman will never agree." "Roman will do exactly what I tell him if he wants you to survive the next 24 hours. Anthony turned away, dismissing her. "Take her downstairs, and if she tries to escape again, break her legs. She doesn't need to walk down the aisle. She just needs to say, 'I do.'" They dragged Avery into the house, through the kitchen, downstairs that led to a wine cellar that had been converted into something darker. A cell. Concrete walls. Steel door. No light except what leaked in from the hallway before they slammed the door shut. Total darkness. Avery collapsed against the wall, her body shaking, tears streaming down her face. Her ankle throbbed. Her mouth tasted like blood. And somewhere in Chicago, Roman was probably getting the same ultimatum. Marry her tomorrow or she dies. She'd tried to save them both and failed catastrophically. Unless Morrison moved fast enough, unless the FBI could get warrants and mobilize before the wedding, unless— The door opened. A figure stepped into the cell. For a moment, backlit by hallway light, Avery couldn't see who it was. Then the door closed and a flashlight clicked on. Victor Sareen stood in front of her, smiling. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-40s, handsome in a cold, angular way, wearing an expensive suit and radiating the kind of casual violence that made her father look almost humane by comparison. Avery Valine. His accent was Eastern European, smoothed by years in America. "I've heard so much about you." "Get out." "I don't think so." He crouched down in front of her, studying her face like she was an interesting specimen. "Your father thinks he's in control of this situation, thinks he can marry you off to Roman Vesper and maintain his alliance with both families, but he's wrong." "What do you want?" "The same thing everyone wants: power, territory, control." Saren's smile widened. "And you're the key to all three. See, if you marry Roman tomorrow, I lose my leverage. The Vesper family becomes untouchable through political connections. But if you die before the wedding, if Roman loses you permanently, he becomes unstable, emotional, easy to manipulate." Avery's breath caught. "You're going to kill me." "Eventually. But first, I'm going to use you." He pulled out a phone, started recording. "You're going to make a video for Roman. Tell him you love him. Tell him you're sorry for everything. Tell him goodbye. And then tomorrow morning, right before the wedding, I'm going to send him that video along with proof that you're dead. The grief will destroy his judgment, and in that moment of weakness, I'll take everything he has." "He'll kill you." "He'll try." Saren shrugged. "But grief makes people sloppy, and I've never been sloppy." He held up the phone, started recording. "Say hello to Roman, Avery. Make it good. This is the last time he'll ever hear your voice." Avery stared into the camera lens, her mind racing through options that didn't exist. If she refused, Saren would torture her until she complied. If she cooperated, she'd be giving Roman exactly the kind of emotional devastation Saren wanted. Either way, she was dead. Unless an idea formed. Desperate, insane, maybe just crazy enough to work. Avery looked into the camera and spoke directly to Roman, her voice steady despite the terror. Roman, if you're watching this, I need you to listen carefully. Remember Charleston. Remember the night we talked about the one thing I was always afraid of? The thing I told you I could never survive? She paused, letting the words sink in. You said I was wrong. You said I was stronger than I believed, that I could survive anything, and you were right. Another pause. So don't come for me. Don't let grief make you reckless. Don't give them what they want. Just remember what I told you that night. Remember the address. And trust that I can take care of myself. Enough, Saren said, stopping the recording. That was touching. Almost makes me feel bad about what happens next. Do whatever you want to me, Avery said quietly. But you already lost. Because Roman's smarter than you think, and he'll understand what I just told him. What did you tell him? Something you'll never figure out. She met Saren's eyes without flinching. Because you're not smart enough to know when someone's playing you. Saren's expression darkened. He grabbed her jaw, squeezing hard enough to bruise. You think you're clever? You think some coded message is going to save you? I think you're scared. Avery's voice stayed steady, even as pain radiated through her face. Because you're standing in this basement threatening a woman you could kill right now, but you haven't, which means you still need me alive. And that makes me dangerous. Saren shoved her away, standing up. Your father was right about one thing. You are stubborn. He headed toward the door, then looked back. Enjoy your last night alive, Avery. Tomorrow morning you become bait one final time, and then you become nothing. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed everything again. But in that darkness, Avery smiled. Because she'd just done something Saren would never expect. She'd told Roman exactly where to find Agent Morrison. The address wasn't random. It was the coffee shop in Cambridge where she'd arranged to meet the FBI. The thing she was always afraid of wasn't death or imprisonment. It was betraying Roman a second time. And the strength he'd told her she had was the courage to destroy both their fathers before it was too late. Roman would figure it out. He had to. Because if he didn't, if he couldn't decode the message and get to Morrison before the wedding, then Saren was right. She'd be dead by morning, and the war would be lost before it even started. Avery pressed her back against the cold concrete wall, closed her eyes, and started counting seconds. Somewhere in Chicago, Roman was getting that video. Somewhere in Boston, Agent Morrison was waiting for evidence that might never arrive. And somewhere in this basement, time was running out. The wedding was in 12 hours. And Avery Valine had just bet both their lives on Roman being smart enough to understand a coded message delivered at gunpoint in a hostage video. Either he'd figure it out and save them both, or she'd die in this basement, and Roman would walk into Saren's trap thinking grief was the only thing left worth feeling. The concrete was cold against her spine. Her ankle throbbed. Her mouth still tasted like blood. But her mind was clear. And for the first time since her father dragged her back to Boston, Avery felt something besides fear. She felt dangerous. Not because she had weapons or power or control, but because she finally understood something her father and Saren would never comprehend. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one with the most power. It's the one with nothing left to lose. And Avery Valine had just lost everything, which meant she was about to become someone even she didn't recognize. Someone capable of burning down empires. Someone who could stand in the ashes afterward and not even feel the heat. Someone who could look Roman Vesper in the eyes tomorrow and either save his life or watch him die trying to save hers. The basement door didn't open again that night. No food, no water, no light except what leaked under the crack. Just silence and darkness and the steady counting of seconds until everything either shattered or survived. Avery didn't sleep, didn't pray, didn't cry, just waited and planned, and became something her father should have killed years ago. A daughter who finally learned how to fight back. Dawn broke gray and cold over Boston. Avery heard footsteps upstairs around 6 a.m, heavy boots, multiple people moving with purpose, her father's voice giving orders, something about the ceremony starting at 10, about moving her upstairs to prepare, about making sure she looked presentable for photographs. like this was a real wedding instead of an execution dressed in white. The basement door opened. Two men descended, pulling Avery to her feet without gentleness. Her ankle screamed, but she bit down on the pain, refusing to give them the satisfaction of hearing her cry out. They dragged her upstairs into blinding morning light. Her eyes watered. Her body felt weak from dehydration and hunger. But her mind stayed sharp, focused on one single question. Had Roman figured it out? They took her to her old bedroom where a wedding dress hung waiting. White silk, elegant, expensive. Everything a bride should want. Avery stared at it with something close to hatred. A woman she didn't recognize entered carrying makeup and styling tools. Professional, efficient. The kind hired to make damaged goods look pristine for important occasions. "You have 2 hours," the woman said without emotion. "Try to cooperate. It'll go easier." Avery cooperated because fighting would waste energy she needed for what came next. She let them wash her face, cover the bruises with makeup, style her hair into something beautiful. She put on the dress when ordered, standing still while they zipped it up the back. In the mirror, she looked like someone else entirely. A bride? A victim. A ghost wearing white. At 9:45, her father entered. Anthony Valine wore a tuxedo and cold satisfaction. He studied his daughter with the same expression he probably used to evaluate successful business transactions. "You clean up well," he said. "Go to hell." "After you." He gestured toward the door. "The guests are waiting. Small ceremony. Just family and necessary witnesses. Roman arrived an hour ago with his father. He looks worse than you do, if that makes you feel better." Avery's chest tightened. "You're really going through with this?" "Of course. The arrangement serves everyone's interests. Except yours, perhaps. But your interests stopped mattering the moment you betrayed me." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "Understand something, Avery. I gave you chances. Multiple chances. To comply. To accept your role, to stop fighting. And you refused every single one. So whatever happens after you say I do today, whatever Victor Sarin has planned, you brought it on yourself." "Sarin's going to kill me." "Probably." Anthony's expression didn't change. "But that's no longer my problem. I'm delivering you to Roman Vesper as promised. What happens afterward is between you, your husband, and whatever deals have been made without my knowledge." "You're selling me out. I'm cutting my losses." He opened the door. "Now walk, smile for the cameras, and try not to embarrass me one final time." Avery walked, down the stairs, through the foyer, toward the back garden where they'd set up the ceremony. Her legs felt numb. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere left to go. The garden had been transformed into something coldly beautiful. White chairs arranged in neat rows. Flower arrangements that probably cost more than most people's rent. A small arch covered in roses where a justice of the peace waited with a leather-bound book. And standing at the altar, dressed in black despite the bullet wound in his leg, was Roman Vesper. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His face was pale. His jaw was tight. His eyes, when they found hers, carried something beyond grief. Desperation. Marcus Vesper stood beside his son, expression unreadable. A handful of other witnesses filled the front rows, lawyers, advisors, people who existed to make this transaction legally binding. And in the back corner, partially hidden behind other guests, Victor Sarin watched with a smile that promised violence. Avery's father walked her down the aisle with his hand clamped around her elbow, like she might bolt at any second. When they reached the altar, he transferred her hand to Roman's without ceremony. Roman's grip was tight, trembling slightly. "Did you understand?" Avery whispered urgently. "Not here," Roman murmured back, his eyes flicking toward Sarin. The justice of the peace cleared his throat and began the ceremony. Standard words about love and commitment and choosing each other, words that felt obscene given the circumstances. Avery barely heard them. Her focus was split between Roman's face and the back corner where Sarin sat radiating menace. "Do you, Roman Vesper, take Avery Valine to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Roman's jaw worked. His eyes stayed locked on Avery's. "I do." "And do you, Avery Valine, take Roman Vesper to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Avery opened her mouth. Before she could speak, glass shattered. Federal agents crashed through the garden doors, weapons raised, vests marked FBI in stark white letters. Agent Morrison led the charge, his voice cutting through the sudden chaos. "Nobody move! Anthony Valine, Victor Sarin, you're both under arrest!" Everything exploded at once. Sarin's men pulled weapons. Marcus Vesper's security drew in response. Guests screamed and dove for cover. Anthony Valine grabbed for his daughter, but Roman yanked Avery behind him, shielding her with his body. "Get down!" Morrison shouted. Gunfire erupted. Roman pulled Avery to the ground, covering her completely. Bullets shredded the flower arch above them. Wood splinters rained down. Someone screamed. Bodies hit the ground, some diving for cover, others not getting up again. Through the chaos, Avery saw her father running toward the house, saw Sarin pulling a weapon and firing at the advancing agents, saw Marcus Vesper shouting orders while his men returned fire. "We need to move," Roman said urgently in her ear. "Now!" He hauled her upright, and they ran, crouched low, moving toward the garden's far wall while bullets tore through the air around them. Avery's wedding dress snagged on chairs and flowers. Her ankle nearly gave out twice. But Roman held her up, his grip iron hard despite his own injury. They made it to the wall. Roman boosted Avery over first, then followed, landing hard on his wounded leg with a gasp of pain. On the other side, they found themselves in the neighbor's yard. The Hendersons' property. Empty. Safe. Behind them, the gunfire continued. "The thumb drive," Roman said, breathing hard. "Do you still have it?" Avery reached into her bra and pulled it out. "I gave Morrison the address. Told him to meet me there. He must have figured out that you were the one who called." "Yes." Roman's expression was grim. "I decoded your message, went to the coffee shop, found Morrison waiting, gave him everything I had on both organizations, my father's records, your evidence, all of it. We had just enough time to get warrants and mobilize." "You saved me. You saved us." He cupped her face with shaking hands. "That message, telling me to remember Charleston, to trust that you could take care of yourself. I knew what you meant. Knew you'd found a way to fight back. I just had to be smart enough to help you finish it." Sirens wailed in the distance, more federal vehicles arriving. "It's over," Avery whispered. "Isn't it? They'll arrest everyone. My father, Sarin. Your father—" "Yes." Roman's voice was hollow. "All of them. The empires fall today. Everything our fathers built, gone. What happens to us? I don't know." He pressed his forehead against hers. "But we're alive, and we're together. That's enough." More gunfire from the garden, then shouting, orders to drop weapons. Roman pulled Avery further into the Henderson property, away from the violence, until they reached a gazebo half hidden by trees. They collapsed onto the bench inside, both shaking, both trying to process what had just happened. "I thought you were dead," Roman said quietly. "When Sarin sent me that video, when you said goodbye, I thought, I know." Avery gripped his hand. "But I couldn't tell you the truth directly. Had to make Sarin think it was just sentiment, that I was giving up." "You were never giving up." "No." She met his eyes. "I was declaring war." They sat in silence, listening to the chaos wind down in the distance. Eventually, the gunfire stopped. The shouting became organized, professional. Agent Morrison found them 20 minutes later, flanked by 2 other agents. "Miss Valine, Mr. Vesper." He looked exhausted but grimly satisfied. "We've secured the scene. Anthony Valine and Victor Sarin are both in custody. Marcus Vesper as well, along with approximately 30 other individuals from both organizations." "Any casualties?" Roman asked. 3 of Sarin's men, 2 wounded on our side. Could have been much worse." Morrison's expression softened slightly. "You both did the right thing, bringing us this evidence. Without it, these men would still be operating with impunity." "What happens now?" Avery's voice was barely above a whisper. "Now you give formal statements, testify when the time comes, and then—" Morrison paused. "Then you figure out who you want to be when you're not defined by your father's crimes." He left them with instructions to come to the field office later that afternoon. Avery and Roman sat in the gazebo as morning stretched into noon, neither quite ready to face what came next. "The wedding wasn't finished," Avery said eventually. "I never said I do." Roman looked at her. "Do you want to?" "I don't know." She was quiet for a long moment. "Everything between us started with lies. with manipulation, with me running and you hunting. How do we build something real on that foundation? Maybe we don't. Roman's voice was rough. Maybe we start over, completely. No arranged marriage, no family pressure, no empires forcing us together. Just two people who survived hell and get to choose what happens next. And what do you choose? You. He said it without hesitation. I choose you, not because my father ordered it, not because it's strategic, not because you're leverage or property or any of the things they tried to make you. I choose you because you're the only person who ever made me want to be something other than what I was raised to be. Tears burned down Avery's face. Roman, but I won't force that choice on you. He took her hand gently. You deserve freedom, real freedom. The kind where you wake up every morning and decide who you want to be without anyone controlling that decision. So if you want to walk away from me, from all of this, I'll understand. I'll let you go, for real this time. No hunting, no following, just freedom. Avery looked at the man beside her, the man who'd lied to her face for months, who'd dragged her into nightmares, who'd also saved her life, protected her, given her the tools to fight back when no one else believed she could. I don't want to walk away, she said quietly, but I can't marry you. Not like this. Not with everything still raw and broken between us. I know. I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not running, when I'm not someone's daughter or someone's target. I need to stand on my own first. How much time? I don't know, maybe months, maybe longer. She met his eyes. Can you wait that long? Without expectations? Without pressure? Just wait? Roman was quiet for a moment, then, yes, I can wait, as long as it takes. Why? Because you're worth waiting for. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. And because for the first time in my life, I want to do something that's not about strategy or power or control. I want to do something that's just about love, even if that means standing still while you figure things out. Avery started crying in earnest then, not from grief or fear, but from something she couldn't quite name. Relief, maybe, or hope, or the terrifying possibility that despite everything, they might actually survive this. The federal investigation took 6 months. Anthony Valine, Victor Sarin, and Marcus Vesper were all indicted on multiple charges: racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, political corruption. The trials would take years, but the evidence was overwhelming. The empires their fathers had spent decades building collapsed in a matter of weeks, Avery testified. So did Roman. They stood in courtrooms and recounted horrors they'd witnessed, crimes they'd uncovered, betrayals that had nearly killed them both. The media called it the biggest organized crime takedown in decades. Avery called it survival. Between court appearances, she moved into a small apartment in Cambridge. 1 bedroom, no security, no guards, no one telling her what to do or where to go. She took online courses in cybersecurity, built a freelance career under her own name, slowly learned what it felt like to wake up without panic. Roman did the same in Chicago. He restructured what remained of the Vesper holdings into legitimate security operations, cut away everything tainted by his father's violence, testified against the organization he'd once been groomed to lead. They talked on the phone twice a week, carefully, honestly, learning each other all over again without the lies. What are you doing today? Roman would ask. Taking a class. You? Meeting with lawyers, trying to dismantle 50 years of criminal infrastructure. How's that going? Slowly, but it's happening. Good. Long silences, but comfortable ones, the kind that didn't need filling. I miss you, Roman said once, about 3 months in. I miss you too, Avery admitted, but I'm not ready yet. I know, take your time. And he did. And he waited while Avery learned how to live without fear, while she built a life that belonged entirely to her, while she figured out who Avery Valine was when she wasn't running or hiding or fighting to survive. 8 months after the raid, Avery called Roman with a different kind of nervousness in her voice. I'm ready, she said. Ready for what? To see you, face to face, not as fugitives or hostages or people forced together by circumstance, just us. Silence on the other end. Then, when? This weekend? I'll come to Chicago, if that's okay. It's more than okay. Roman met her at the airport looking different than she remembered, less controlled, more genuine. He wore jeans and a plain shirt. His hair was slightly longer. His face carried lines that hadn't been there before, evidence of stress and trauma and rebuilding. But when he smiled at her, it was real. "Hi," he said. "Hi," Avery responded. They stood in the arrivals terminal, suddenly shy like teenagers on a first date instead of two people who'd survived hell together. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Roman admitted. "I wasn't sure either, but I'm here." "How do you feel?" "Terrified," Avery said honestly, "but also hopeful," which is new. Roman drove her to a small apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. Not the mansion, not the estate, just a modest place with large windows and secondhand furniture and nothing that looked like wealth built on violence. "This is where you live?" Avery asked. "For now. I'm still figuring out what comes next." He set her bag down. "I got rid of everything connected to my father, the houses, the cars, the businesses. Started over with almost nothing." "How does that feel?" "Lighter." He met her eyes. "Scary, but lighter." They spent the weekend rediscovering each other, walking along the lakefront, cooking simple meals in his tiny kitchen, talking about things that mattered and things that didn't, learning how to exist together without crisis forcing their hands. On Sunday evening, standing at the window watching sunset paint the lake in gold and purple, Avery finally said what she'd been holding back. "I forgive you." Roman turned to look at her. "What? For lying, for hunting me, for everything that happened in Charleston?" Her voice was steady. "I forgive you. Not because you've earned it or because enough time passed, but because I can't keep carrying that anger. It's too heavy, and I want to be free of it." "Avery, I'm not saying I forget or that it doesn't still hurt sometimes, but I'm choosing to let it go. Because holding on to it means staying trapped in the past. And I'm done being trapped." Roman's eyes were wet. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway." She moved closer. "Here's what I know. We both made mistakes. We both hurt each other. We both did things we're not proud of, but we also both chose, at the worst possible moments, to save each other instead of ourselves. And that has to count for something." "It counts for everything," Roman said roughly. "Then let's start there." Avery took his hands. "Let's start with knowing we chose each other when it mattered most, and build forward from that instead of backward from the lies." "How do we do that?" "Slowly, honestly. Without pretending the past didn't happen, but also without letting it define everything." She paused. "I'm not ready to marry you, Roman. Maybe I won't be for a long time. Maybe I'll never want that kind of official binding, but I want to try. To see if we can be something real, something healthy, something that isn't built on fear or obligation. I want that too." He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. More than anything. They kissed then, slow, careful, like something fragile being handled for the first time. And for the first time since Charleston, it felt like a beginning instead of an ending. 2 years later, Avery stood in a small office in downtown Chicago, watching her company logo appear on the screen. Valine Security Consulting. Her company. Built from nothing. No family money, no criminal connections, just skill, determination, and clients who valued expertise over bloodline. Roman leaned against the doorframe, watching her with quiet pride. "How does it feel?" "Surreal." Avery turned to face him. "A few years ago, I was running for my life. Now I own a business, have employees, pay taxes like a normal person. You were never normal." "No, but I'm finally free." She crossed the office, wrapping her arms around him. "Really, genuinely free. No one owns me. No one controls me. I make every choice myself. Best feeling in the world, isn't it?" "Second best." She kissed him. "You're the best." They'd been living together for 6 months, slowly, carefully, building something that looked nothing like the arranged marriage their fathers had tried to force. They fought sometimes, worked through old wounds, had conversations that hurt but needed saying, but they also laughed, made each other breakfast, fell asleep tangled together, built a life that was ordinary and imperfect and completely theirs. "I have something for you," Roman said one evening, about 3 years after the raid. They were in their apartment, larger now, but still modest, cooking dinner together. Avery looked up from chopping vegetables. What is it? Roman pulled a small box from his pocket. Avery's breath caught. Roman, it's not what you think. He opened the box. Inside was a key, simple, silver, nothing dramatic. This is the key to a house. Small place, 2 bedrooms, big windows, garden and back. It's in both our names, equal ownership. No one person controls it. You bought us a house? We bought us a house. I used money from selling off the last of the legitimate holdings. You've been paying into savings for months. It's ours. Together, if you want it. Avery stared at the key, emotions swirling. This feels like a big step. It is. And if you're not ready, I'm ready. She took the key, turning it over in her palm. I'm terrified, but I'm ready. They moved in a month later. The house was everything Roman had promised. Sunlight everywhere, space to breathe, a place that felt like possibility instead of prison. Avery planted herbs in the garden. Roman built shelves for her growing collection of books. They argued about paint colors and laughed about furniture assembly instructions and slowly transformed empty rooms into home. One winter evening, snow falling beyond the windows and a fire crackling in the hearth they'd never used before, Roman looked up from his book. Marry me. Avery's heart stopped. What? Not now, not soon, but eventually. When you're ready, if you're ever ready. He set the book aside. I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm just asking if someday, maybe, you could see yourself choosing that, choosing me, officially. Not because anyone forced it, but because we want it. Avery was quiet for a long time watching the fire. Ask me again in a year, she said finally. Okay. Not because I'm unsure, but because I want to be absolutely certain when I say yes. I want there to be zero doubt, zero fear, just complete, total confidence that this is what I want. I can wait. I know. She moved closer, curling into his side. That's why I'm going to say yes. You just said... I said ask me again in a year. I didn't say the answer would be no. She looked up at him, eyes bright. It won't be no, Roman, but I need that year to be sure I'm saying yes for the right reasons. Not because I'm grateful you saved me, not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because I genuinely want to spend my life with you. Roman kissed the top of her head. Then I'll ask again in a year. He did. They were sitting in that same spot, fire burning, snow falling, the world quiet and peaceful beyond their windows, when Roman pulled out a simple gold band. Avery Valine, he said quietly, will you marry me? Not because anyone arranged it, not because it's strategic, not because our families demanded it, just because I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Avery looked at the ring, at Roman, at the life they'd built together, from ruins and trauma and impossible choices. Yes, she said, on one condition. Anything. We do it our way. Small ceremony, just people we actually love, no spectacle, no politics, just us, choosing each other. Finally, completely. Deal. They married in the spring in their garden. Lena stood as Avery's witness, tears streaming down her face. A friend of Roman's from his new security business stood as his. The officiant was someone neither of their fathers would have approved of, a woman who talked about partnership and equality instead of obligation. There were 12 people total. No federal agents this time, no gunfire, no betrayal waiting in the wings. Just 2 people who'd survived hell choosing each other in daylight. When the officiant asked if Avery took Roman as her husband, she didn't hesitate. I do. And when Roman slipped the ring onto her finger, Avery finally understood what freedom actually meant. Not the absence of choice, but the presence of it. The ability to wake up every morning and decide who to be, who to love, how to live. The power to stand in the wreckage of everything that tried to destroy her and say, I'm still here, I'm still choosing, I'm still free. Years later, standing in that same garden with gray in her hair and laugh lines around her eyes, Avery would think back to the girl who ran from Boston with one suitcase and terror in her chest. She would remember the lies, the violence, the moment in that Charleston bar when a stranger called Cole changed her life forever. She would remember the basement, the wedding that never finished, the choice between saving Roman or letting him die. And she would understand that survival was never about running away from danger. It was about running towards something worth fighting for. For Avery, that something was Roman. Not because he was perfect, he wasn't. They both carried scars that would never fully heal. Both had nightmares about basements and gunfire, and fathers who saw them as assets instead of people. But they had each other, and they had chosen that again and again. Through trauma and healing, through fear and hope, through every moment where walking away would have been easier than staying. They chose each other, not because they had to, because they wanted to. And in the end, that made all the difference. The garden was quiet now, just Avery and Roman standing in the spot where they'd married years ago, watching their rescue dog chase butterflies across the lawn. "Do you ever regret it?" Avery asked. "Giving up the empire, the power, everything your father built?" "Never." Roman pulled her close. "I'd give it all up again, every time, if it meant having this instead." "This isn't much. This is everything." He kissed her temple. "This is waking up without fear. This is knowing that the person beside me chose to be there. This is building something clean from ruins. That's worth more than any empire." Avery leaned into him, breathing in the scent of grass and spring flowers and possibility. "We survived," she said softly. "We did more than survive." Roman's voice was quiet, certain. "We won." And standing there in the garden they'd built together, in the life they'd chosen instead of inherited, Avery finally believed him. They had won. Not through violence or manipulation or playing the games their fathers taught them, but by refusing to play at all, by choosing love over power, freedom over control, each other over everything. And that, more than any arranged marriage, any criminal empire, any forced alliance, was worth fighting for, worth surviving for, worth living for. The afternoon sun painted everything gold. The dog barked happily. Somewhere inside the house, a timer went off signaling dinner was ready. Ordinary sounds. Normal life. The kind of life Avery Valine had once believed was impossible. But here it was. Hers. Theirs. Hard-won and battle-scarred and absolutely perfect. She took Roman's hand and they walked back toward the house together, leaving the garden and its ghosts behind. Because the past was finished, and the future, for the first time, belonged entirely to them.